We are live.
All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome to another episode 26 or 27 of the 5-Star Podcast. We have a lot to talk about today. How's everyone doing?
Good, man. Good. What's up? Welcome back, Woody.
Welcome back, Woody.
First one of the year. Hiatus. But
First one of 2024. How's it feel?
Feels good. It's good to be back.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about. So we're going to be covering some of the most recent Canadian news about the international foreign ban on students, right?
That's right.
We're going to talk about a little bit about the market conditions in 2024 as we see it now, because apparently there's a shift from buyers now, or from sellers to sort of buyers, right? Mm-hmm. And some other topics on the docket. But let's begin, guys. So, what are your thoughts on the new Canadian foreign?
Well, before we get into that topic of the international student cap, why don't we just recap a little bit of January?
How was January
stats?
so far, 2024 thus far?
Oh, wait, even before that, I was introduced. Oh, did we introduce the names?
Oh, yeah.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Introduce the names.
Rod.
Oh yeah, sorry. Kenny usually does this. This is what happens when you guys get mad. All right, so we've got to my right the man, the myth, the legend, Richard.
What?
We've got over here Stevie Wonder, Steve Mack, of course Woody, and then obviously the ever popular Winston Mack. Here we go. Kenny's busy today,
and you're Rod.
And I'm Rod. So here we go.
That's for all new listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so January market watch. Here we go, guys. Okay, so we've got detached homes up 0.8% in the Toronto market, as reported by Treb, to 1.35. Okay, semi-detached up 1.8% to 1.38.
This is the general GTA area, right?
Yeah, this is
so
these are average prices.
Average for everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Home sales in general. Okay. So we got townhouses up 0.5%, average price, I guess, $891. Right.
Okay.
And again, down is the condominium market, down by 0.6%.
That's actually not too bad.
Average price, $681,000.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
So general experience for everyone. What's the vibe? How do you guys?
How you?
feeling?
What
Well,
do you
I
see?
mean, based on the stats alone, obviously the stats are showing that the market's going up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based on price, but also volume of sales have gone up. Is there volume of sales in your stats, or?
Let's check. So the number of sales, okay, so year over year, January 2024, it's 4,223 number of sales year over year versus last year, the same time, January 2023, 3,083.
Wow,
So
that's a 30,
What's the percentage?
That's almost a 30% difference.
37%
Increase.
Yeah.
That's right.
30%
Yeah.
increase. That's crazy.
But check this out. Average sale price year over year from January 2024 to 2023, it's actually down 1%.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. But you know
Average
what?
sale price.
But if we remember last year, the interest rates didn't rise yet at that point, right?
Yeah.
So most of the numbers actually came from 2023 that they were actually pretty bad. So as the year went along, that's when the buyer's market kind of started, the shift from seller to buyer. So we're actually kind of seeing the end of that like short-lived window, and now we're kind of going back into the sellers kind of taking into the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that sales prices chases sales volumes. So with the sales volumes going up over 30%, guess what? Where prices are going to go next?
Yeah. So that's interesting. But actually, you know what? Based on those stats, I mean, my sentiment is actually that the market has picked up quite a bit. Actually, since I would say, mid-January, exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Mid-January, we saw bid wars back. Right. So there's lots of different offers. I mean, we saw offers in like freehold townhouses, like 35 offers on one house, 25 offers on one house.
Well, we've all heard of that story of the 82, 85 offer in Mississauga.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That one, I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like January, that's never happened.
But the start price was it
It's like,
artificial?
I think it was like $799 and sold for $1 million or something.
Right. Yeah.
But still, like there's a lot of people that's still looking, and they see that number. They're going to try. Not to say that all 80 or 85 offers were good, but they're willing to try.
So current market, I see a function of two factors. I would say natural spring market. People are coming back after the winter, kids are
After
back to
Christmas,
school again.
winter time. After
Weather gets
Christmas,
better,
after
Well, it feels warmer. People are feeling nice, so it feels almost feel like spring.
it does feel like spring to be
It's
honest.
been mild winter.
Yeah.
So
this week.
the interest rates with upcoming expected good news, buyer confidence, seller confidence. Everyone's
Okay.
getting back to the table.
Yeah.
What's everyone's actual experience so far? Like Richard, you've seen some bidding
I'm
wars.
experiencing multi offers again, and I'm seeing a lot more activity in the marketplace in general.
You know, one thing to note, I've been in a couple multiple offers this past week. This is what I've been observing. Even though we are actually beating out some of the other offers, sellers are not selling.
Yeah, they're so greedy.
Yeah,
so
they
greedy.
literally are, because like we were the top offer. And this is a number that the agents, the listing agents, they're baffled. They're like, this is the number they told me they're going to sell.
Yeah.
And now they want 50,000 on top of that. We're like, what is going on? It's actually insane.
I was in a similar situation. We had offers that were like, very, very, very fair to the market.
Yeah. And the market
And
conditions.
The seller is just like, no, we want to relist at this price.
Yeah.
And,
Because we're actually like, so the offers that we're winning, we're not winning at December prices.
Right.
We're actually giving them more than December, more than November.
But they
and
want
they're
more.
still not happy.
Yeah.
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 Because they see the shift, right?
But I see it like even despite the shift, there's also a danger with this behavior from the sellers because
Oh, absolutely.
because the financing
I think they're
part
going
is still
to regret this decision sometimes, right?
half the time. My experience is the first offer or on the day of offer, that's the best offer that you're going to get. Like moving forward
from your
That's true.
experience.
from my experience, because
Okay. No, that's fair.
Sometimes,
That's
yeah.
true.
That's
That's
true.
normally
Yeah,
the
definitely.
case.
Yeah.
But I mean, Rod, what do you feel the sentiment is on the market?
I think I agree with Winston. I've seen some sellers who want clearly a lot more than asking, even though the market's saying it's not. It's funny. I have some clients who look at what's that app? House Sigma.
Yeah.
And House Sigma gives a value, right?
Right,
of their
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
AI generated, however
Mhm,
they do it.
mhm.
And then I always tell them, okay, that's great, but let me you need a professional to look at it,
Yeah.
and then do the comparables based on other factors, right?
Yeah.
Everything. So don't necessarily agree on what it says because that's the value, right? That might not be the
Of
same
course.
appraisal as the bank gives it.
Absolutely.
But even though they see it, they say, okay, well, it's only worth this much. But a seller will say, no, I know my house. I know what I've done to it. I know all the renovations and improvements. It's worth this much. It's worth 50,000 more or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you can't change their minds because they're set. So regardless, like you said, you put an offer, they're not going to take it. They're going to hold out. They don't need to. So I see the sentiment the same way. A lot of sellers are set on, this is the number I want. I don't care if it's
You know
shifting to a
what?
buyer's market. I know what I want.
This is actually like something I experienced last night. So we gave them an offer like the day before. It was already way over what the area is selling for. Bully offer, so preemptive offer, whatnot. We don't want to participate in a bidding war. So we gave them an offer. So one of the sellers, the husband, was like, "Oh, this is a great offer. We need to take this." Agent was like, "This is way over. This is 50,000 more than the last house on the same street last month." Wife comes in. I'm gonna wait for because there's like a lot of showings. They're like, I want to wait for the offer date, and then we're like, okay, fine. We're gonna give you another $20,000. So this is $75,000 more than the last house, and they're like, we're gonna wait.
Well, they're confident. Of course, they're confident, right?
Oh.
But
I mean, that's sometimes a mistake, but
it is a huge
It
mistake because it
could be,
will
though.
not
But
reach
that's
that
just
number.
the seller's greed still.
It
I mean,
is-
they still have
yeah.
the idea of what 2022 was, and that's what they want to achieve.
Well,
Still.
what's the range for this house? Over a mil, over
This is,
1.5, over 2?
It should be like for today's worth, maybe a 1.45. We gave them one. So the last house sold for 1.42, 1.425.
Yeah.
We gave them 1.5
Okay.
even, like on the last
pretty good.
offer. And we're like,
And they
you know
didn't
what?
take
We're
it.
not even coming back.
Wow.
Yeah.
well, you know what?
Take it. We're actually like leaving
Wow.
this. We're
So-
not
so the
coming back.
funny-
Is it detached?
It is.
Well, to be fair, 1.45 compared to 1.42, that's what, maybe 2% more
Within a month.
within a month.
That's actually pretty good growth.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You can't even comment because you haven't seen like the comparables and the houses.
We
and
have
market
seen
value.
all the comparables.
No, but I in that scenario, but I mean, like even for us.
Well,
we
no,
don't know.
the seller's delusional at this point. Like even if we were giving them
Yeah.
155,
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, oh,
No, yeah, 117.
They're at that
or
moment
whatever.
where they're like kind of like at the gambler's mentality where I want to beat the house, I want to sit and I want to gamble.
Well, let me tell you this. This is often happens to sellers, and because they don't sell on a regular basis. They're not in the market, so they're always locked in that their home. The delusion is their home's the best. They improved it so much. They're so much better, and if they have a price in mind, if from the past, they're fixated on that. But half the time, it's actually a realtor's job, listing agent's job to bring them down a little bit, like
Educate them.
Educate them.
They did. They tried to work it really, really hard. And
It's
the
true.
original expectation was they're going to sell at a certain number. Even though we exceeded that number, now it's really just one of the sellers, not both.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like the
that's
market
that's part of the market, right?
the
That's
market
my
is the
experience
market,
right now.
and that's what the market is willing to
And
pay.
it's-
Yeah.
So in conclusion, I feel that like I think we all have the same conclusion: is that the market has picked right back up.
It has picked up,
And,
definitely.
things are moving forward.
Like
again,
buyers
the way they
are active, sellers are.
So we've seen a bit of a shift, right?
Yeah,
From
definitely.
a buyer's market to more of a seller's market again. Or more of a balanced market.
Balance,
I would say
I'd
more
say.
balanced still.
I'm
It's not
hoping-
crazy, but I mean, we're sort of trending that way.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel if the next rate announcement from the Bank of Canada is going to really play heavily on whether it shifts?
The next announcement, I honestly think it's just going to hold again because the Feds in the U.S. held. So they're probably just going to hold again anyways.
But if the
Any
BO
shift would be crazy, like seismic
But it's going
activity
to
for sure.
gradually. But yeah, again,
for sure,
like
if
the market.
the BOC holds rates steady, it's going to be
Well,
good.
then spring's gonna
and
happen,
if
right?
they drop,
Oh, it's going to be.
Then it's going to be nuclear.
nuts.
It will be
Nuts.
To the
nuclear.
moon.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
to the moon. Like
absolutely.
it's back. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
GameStop
Yeah.
style.
I mean, what do you has a pulse on it?
We'll
He's
probably see
in
the
the
rate drop in
mortgage
like
Yeah.
not the next announcement is what, March. So we'll see what happens.
telling you
yeah,
guys,
that
my
coupled-
prediction-
that
my
coupled
prediction
with
was
the
summer.
spring market.
I'm telling you,
Insane.
summer. That was
So,
that was my prediction.
That's cool. But I mean, you know what? The government has taken some actions recently to, a couple weeks ago, they've introduced this international student cap. This should actually impact the market.
Nice
quite a bit,
segue.
right?
I know. I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So that was actually our main topic today,
Yeah.
anyways. Because
So correction, it's not a
the
foreign
news came.
ban on international
Yeah,
students.
no, it's just a
They're
cap. So they
capping-
capped it.
Yes,
International
Right. So what does that
students.
mean? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
let's explain
guys?
that a
Like,
little bit.
International student cap. So I mean, the increase of international students over the years. So if we're to go back from like say even 2015, right, we're steadily around like 200 international students that enter into Canada as a student, on a student visa.
Yep.
Right, and it was about 200,000, and then in 2019, the numbers have started to increase, and in 2019 we saw that almost double. Right, it's about 400,000.
Yeah.
Right now, last year, right, we've been seeing the numbers at around 580,000 approximately, and this is all reported by our IRCC, so Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship of Canada. Right, they reported this stat. Well, the Canadian government has now capped the international students for Canada at 360, approximately 360. It's give or take this year and going forward for next 2 years. So until 2027, I think it is, or yeah, for 2 years anyways. It's a 2-year cap. Yeah, so 2024, 2025. So no, yeah, it should be about 2026 when they release it, but they'll probably review it again. I mean,
So
recently
that's the student. That's a student.
that's a student cap. That's right.
And then there's also the foreign buyers.
Foreign buyers,
The foreign buyer tax,
extension,
which is
our next
extension to
topic, but
2027. Yeah.
So foreign buyers ban, they also announced that they
Extension.
extended that for another 2 years. So what was supposed to expire last year, or sorry, next year, is now extended to 2027.
Yeah.
So I might be getting confused with the stats there. Right. But ideally, we're talking about a 38% difference from 2023 versus 2024, right? In terms of how many students are allowed into Canada.
Well, I mean, first things first. Like, does anyone here have an idea or an opinion as to why there was such a huge growth in student visas all of a sudden?
Well, I mean, okay, before we go into that, we want to be able to talk more about our market, on Ontario market, right? Because the numbers that we're talking about, it's basically all of Canada, right? So all 10 provinces, right? But 50% of the students that are being let in are actually landing in Ontario.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. So our Ontario real estate market is going to be generally impacted, based on the volume of people that are coming through.
Yeah. Student housing is an issue. We've heard a lot about the rental, the slumlords, Brampton, 25 students in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I mean, it's also, it's interesting because, I find, I don't know if you guys experience this yourselves when you're talking to your clients or when you're doing rentals or whatnot. Right. But, when I'm doing, rentals for my landlords, I get a lot of applications that come and say, oh, well, one husband's on a work permit and then the spouse is on a student visa.
Right.
And it's like, how does that happen? Right. And the reason is because there's no cap and it's the easiest way for them to get into the country without,
falling under
stepping foot into.
But the one that's coming with the student visa, they're like, they're well trained, they're well knowledged in that field, but they're coming in for coming into Canada specifically.
It's better than a refugee. I mean,
hey, but Richard, that I think I experienced that same thing with the renters, and that's the best scenario. Like they're hedging their bets. Like one's with the work permit, so they could technically purchase, right? And if you're a student, they're on their way to getting citizenship if they finish their schooling. So that's one way to remain in Canada if they are trying to come through immigration, right?
Seems like a loophole. I mean, that
That
might be one of the.
Oh, definitely, it's a loophole.
Like that, I think that's like pretty much the floodgates open and everyone's like, oh, Canada's easiest country to get into. That seems like the way. It's a nice country too. Right?
Where do you guys see this? So we work with a lot of students on the leasing side. So where do you see them coming from? What countries would you say they're coming? Your clients personally, when you're representing a tenant, what countries are they coming from?
I think
as students.
I think the stats show that majority of them are still coming in from India.
Yeah.
And then, so I think it was like 30% of them are coming in from India. And then 10% of them are coming in from China, approximately. It's a little under 10%. It's like 9 point something percent.
Yeah.
I think Philippines up there too.
Philippines up there too is about 4.9. I think about 5%. And then France, Nigeria. Those are all the top ones. And then the rest are kind of mixed together.
Yeah.
Right.
So why do you think people want to study here? Like, what's the draw? Like, why do they value the education system in Canada versus Europe, the United States? Like, what is it? What do you think is drawing people here?
I think, to be perfectly honest, we're safe. We don't have any natural disasters, whatnot. Outside of the actual study, the quality of the schooling, it's more like the living situation in Canada is very, very stable and safe.
It's very high as well, though.
It is high,
living
but
standard, right? So.
I would say in Toronto.
In Toronto.
Sorry,
Toronto.
let me preface.
In Toronto,
Yeah.
Vancouver, British Columbia, those are very, very high. You can always go from here to, PEI, whatever, right? I think the reason for coming here over other countries is, well, we have healthcare, we have all this, we have that, we have, 4 seasons, we have pretty good, it's clean too, right?
I would say a lot of international students, they rank, the top 4 places to come to is Canada, North America, US, Europe, or Australia. These are kind of like the top destinations.
Western ideal, right?
Right. So once between the 4, I don't know how the other immigrations work, but if it doubles as an immigration entry, obviously that's a big draw for students. So if they're spending about $60,000 anyway for school, why not just double dip and have a chance for their kids to stay here? Politically, it's quite stable and the dollar's quite strong.
Yeah. But this cap on international students coming, obviously, it has to be somewhat related to the housing crisis.
Yeah,
because we don't have enough beds and rooms and housing supply for anyone, really.
100%. Actually, that's why they made the decision to cap it, because they see the influx of demand for housing in these
rental
specific
rates just
markets.
keep climbing. There's there's no stopping it right now because there's so many people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and there's an uproar not just from Canadian residents, but the students themselves.
Yep.
Because they don't want to live in these suboptimal situations.
Yeah, like
either.
how can Canada be like you're living in the slums back at home? Like it's just ridiculous.
There are students that are literally homeless.
Well, you know what? You see a lot of them come in now. I mean, especially, I mean, we've been dealing with it for a little bit because, I mean, I'm sure you guys seen it too, where you have a house for rent and, you know, you'll have like a bunch of people that's contacting you saying, hey, me and 4 friends are going to move in together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
often.
Yeah. And generally speaking, it's never really just 4 friends. So they, on the face, it looks like 4 friends. And then
there's 8 of them.
and it ended up like being like 10, 12, 15 of them that ends up moving in.
As soon as you step through the door and you hand over the keys, it becomes...
Yeah,
there's no control.
There's no
so
control.
I mean, that's they're gaming the system with the tenant board, right?
Yeah,
It's not really a new concept. It's existed forever, and actually, in fact, if you were,
well, it's not healthy though.
It's not healthy. But if you were a student, if you think back, people tend to be more social, and if you were having, say, a late night study session, or if you have a party, it's better, more the merrier, right? It'd be guys and girls.
Yeah, but I mean, you see, I mean, it kind of makes sense on why they have to do it. I mean, they're coming in from, you know, a different country. They can actually, with this new international student law, they can actually still work 40 hours a week now. So like it used to be that they were capped about like, was it 20 hours?
Under 20.
It was like 20 hours.
20 hours a week.
They can actually work. Right. So they've increased that. So almost they basically have full-time employment. The cost of living has gone up so much that, you know, how are these guys affording living? And they were, I think the standard is that they have to bring in $20,000 of GICs or show that they have $20,000 in GICs reserve for
just to be a student,
to allow them to enter.
Okay.
Yeah, because that way they have proof that they can sustain life or sustain their own living.
And then they draw from that throughout the year to sustain their living, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and they also find employment, right? You know, it's really tough. There's a lot of stress on the international students too in that case because you
got to keep up your studies just to stay in the program.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you got to work
to make your living, and you're
to eat,
ultra stressed.
Yeah.
But from reports that I've seen, after their studies, not everyone stay and remain a citizen.
I think
even if they qualify,
it's like a third, right? That actually stay.
Yeah, like 30%, 35% that stay, and because of their family, or they eventually try to get their family over, whatever their strategy is. But it's a start.
Or sometimes they feel that the quality of life back home is actually better with a Western education.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
fair
true
enough.
too.
That's.
Have you ever personally helped anybody who started as a tenant and you helped them with a lease deal, and eventually they finished school, got a job, and purchased a home with you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Multiple homes.
And so significantly, so the education that they got here absolutely helped them get the job that they wanted in whatever sector, for them to actually afford a house and get a mortgage?
Well, I think it's like it comes in stages, right? So one, they enter, and then they can't qualify to, or their credentials back home aren't equal to the qualifications that we need here. So therefore they can't get the jobs they need here. So they go to school now. Okay, now we have the educational background, and now we can get into that field.
So
and they have to start entry level too, which is crazy.
So the diploma is really a rubber stamp because they already have the skills.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a good way for them to enter into immigration.
For sure.
It's definitely a loophole. And you know what? I mean, I think we were kind of alluding to this a little bit earlier, but the economic impact that it has for a lot of these different businesses, because there's been, I mean, we've seen, you know, all these different private colleges, right, really benefit from these, you know, these immigration.
Well, not just that. I mean,
Colleges,
restaurants around the college, they have to eat, they have to, you know, they have to buy furniture, mattresses.
They definitely thrive.
Need movers to get into the dorm or to get into the place, right?
It's a huge industry for sure.
It's a huge economic impact, right? So if you're capping that, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, for sure, that's the ripple effect of having these students, but even the institutions themselves now, like a lot of them, because they're getting capped, right? Their bottom line is actually going to start to see a bit of an impact. Like
on another note, like do you guys find that like I've heard, I can't verify, but because there's so many students, some colleges and some universities come up with kind of bullshit programs just to kind of get their money in their program. And it's like, it's really like, it's unemployable, but it gets them through the door.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like an elective that's just
No. Like a full-on bullshit program.
like a diploma program?
Oh yeah,
I think
full
diploma in
like it's
Taylor
unemployable.
Swift music is fair.
What's that? Say it again.
Did you just
A
make it up?
diploma in Taylor Swift.
You're a Swiftie? He's a Swiftie.
Like, I mean,
I'm making it up, but it's not far from the
I've
truth.
heard some of those programs are they're just there to get someone as a student. College gets paid. They get whatever they. It's kind of like a trade off.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a diploma
It's a transaction.
now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a transaction.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But because the numbers show that the funding from the government to educational institutions are down, therefore they supplement it with foreign students.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But you know, funding wise,
Yeah,
especially a lot of the universities and colleges, it makes up, international students make up 90% of their funding. So if they're not getting it from federal government,
You got to get somewhere.
they're gonna get it from somewhere. And if
Some of them are actually financially in trouble right now.
it's
Well,
been
okay.
widely reported, but
So
we
it's
don't
going to
want-
economically impact even domestic students. So
Absolutely.
never mind, because here's the difference, right? Like if you're looking at the U of T, like say computer science program, tuition is generally about $6,000 a month, right? To $11,000. Sorry, 6,000 to 11,000 maybe a year.
Yeah.
And an international student that comes in, and their average tuition is around $60,000.
Double. Yeah.
Right. So
It's
that's
more than
almost
double.
10 times.
Yeah.
Right?
shocking.
So it's huge. I mean, the fact that now they're capping this.
Huge injection to college.
Yeah,
and
they're
university.
now now it's going to affect jobs. It's going to affect programs. It's going to affect the domestic
and
student
the
tuition.
growth of the
'Cause you'll have to
colleges
pay
themselves,
more.
right?
Yeah.
Because they always try to expand and build stuff and acquire more land. So
And it might
whether
even-
it's like York, I'm gonna name some, like York University is constantly building. Like I came from York. I go there now. It's unrecognizable to me. Like I don't know what these new buildings are. You go to like TMU, Ryerson, they've acquired new land.
Yeah.
They've built new stuff. You go back down there, you're like, I don't know what this building is, right?
Yeah.
New engineering buildings, whatever.
You know, this
UT, same thing.
this segment brings in billions of dollars for across all educational in every province.
Actually, you know what? That's a very good point
Yeah.
because I think I was looking at the stats, and it was about $22.3 billion it brings in annually.
That's right.
For the
Just in context,
for the country, for the entire country.
for entire country
Per year.
Just in,
Wow.
exactly. So in context,
Wow.
there's actually more income to the country than our auto sector trades
That's
or
crazy.
exports,
That's actually insane.
right? Than our lumber exports,
And is this
Wow.
than our
direct?
aircrafts.
Wow.
Is this
Edu-
direct through the schools
education.
only?
This is the amount of money that's coming into Canada
From international
for
students.
international students. So that's an economic injection
Yes.
into our.
I've
our
actually
economies.
heard, I don't recall, but I heard one of the politicians, they mentioned that they were saying that international students are assets. So
absolutely.
like using that term, government views them as like an income revenue stream, right? Rather than like for the overall growth of the economy and whatnot. It's like we need their money.
So they sugarcoat it as skills and diversity, but in reality,
But
there's
they've already said it like straight up. They're like their revenue stream. They are assets, right? In business
it's a
terms.
business, yeah.
Yeah,
Business
it's a
terms.
business.
Well, okay,
decision.
but look, politically, economically, they get their degrees or diplomas. They
If
get
they
their
stay,
PRs.
they're
if
still
they stay,
they're still taxing
then
them,
they
right?
get their citizenship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now they're Canadian citizens. They're contributing taxes, and so we're growing the economy. So it's not just they're not
It's-
just playing cards. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're contributing individuals
They are.
to
Oh,
society.
absolutely.
and to-
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Let me ask you, guys, this: are international students to blame for housing crisis?
Hell no.
Hell no. No.
Hell
What's your
no.
opinion? What's
No.
your
So-
opinion?
No,
No,
not at
no.
all. Not at all.
No.
How?
I-
Okay, so what's your
Yeah.
opinion? Like, let's talk
That's a
about
very
it.
good question.
Let's break it
but
down.
We don't have enough houses. I mean, whose fault is that?
Okay, so I mean, in terms of real estate, I feel that the impact is, investors are smart and they see this opportunity. We talked about this in our student rental or student housing episode, where people would buy property to rent to students because they turnover is nice and
Property near a university,
we know
near a
that
college, near a campus.
within 4 years they're out.
Yeah.
Like, once they're
Right.
done the program, they're out.
Yeah,
Right.
and the people that come in, there's money, and there's always a renter. There's
There's always someone looking.
Revolving
It's like a
door.
very good
Yeah.
support system
Yeah.
to find
Yeah.
the rentals.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing is now like people are now buying up detached single family homes and renting all of this homes.
They're piecing it, making into rooming houses.
Correct. Not just condos, but they're also detached, like buying detached homes and renting them all out. Right. So therefore now it's taken away supply for the family that wants to buy that home. Right. So now it does still impact our overall market. However, is it the student's fault? No.
It isn't the students' fault. I mean, the fact that they want to come and study is a good thing, but
yeah,
it says a lot about our education system, our economy, the country as a whole.
But we're also not having the supply to curb that demand, because the demand is coming. There's always going to be like you said, it's like 500,000 students or something.
Yeah, you can't expect a university or college to have a dorm
house
room for every single student that they admit. So students have to rent.
Let's think about it this way, okay? Let's look at it this way. We're allowing 360,000 new students or international students into Canada.
Yeah.
And about 50% of them are coming into Ontario.
Okay, so those are all renters. No one's buying, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, we're still getting immigration. That door hasn't closed yet.
I was just going to go there.
That door hasn't even closed yet. That's still open.
Yeah.
So we're getting 400 to 500,000 per year immigrants on top of.
Yeah. No, actually, no. That's work permits, isn't it? So the 500,000 is work permits.
It's a mixture.
Yeah.
But like people that are actually coming in. Through the immigration route, not students. So that's a separate. So that's like what 600, 700,000.
I would say the students.
It's a lot.
The students,
well, how much are we building? 40,000 a year.
But the students in isolation, I view them as more of the victim. Right?
Absolutely.
Like it's got to be some policy changes from the very, very top to be able to, like you said, that's why they're introducing the caps to start making it more of a balanced market. Every student coming in, if without the proper student housing from school, they have to rent. They have to live somewhere, and that takes away the inventory for the existing locals,
the existing population.
And that definitely drives up price because of scarcity.
Right.
Definitely.
But in fairness, there are landlords who will definitely stay away from students. You say students, they're like, no.
Oh, for sure.
No, I want a young professional couple or a couple or professional. Yeah. And then I've seen also, I just want students. Those landlords are like, oh, okay, I just want a student, right? Because they're in and out. Yep. Maybe they don't know the landlord-tenant board rules very well. They just want to come here to study, so they'll pay, et cetera, right? But there's risks either way. But that's a very good question, right? Like that you're asking, right? So, where do you see the demand then? So let's say student housing. We had Brian the other day on the podcast last month or whatever, and so student housing is definitely still expanding because there's only so many dorms that you can develop. Also, students after first year don't live on dorms. They can't, right? Your second year, you don't really stay in first year dormitories, right? Nope. So you have to find somewhere else. There are cities that we talked about that are having special, I guess within the university belt, you can rent it, such as Oshawa, that you can rent it, but you have to go through the permit process now, right? And I think they said that in Brampton too. They're saying that you have
They're trying to do that.
Regulate, they're going to license it or something like that.
They're fighting it actually in Brampton.
And maybe that's a protection for overcrowding houses with a lot of students.
I think that
it just took an effect actually January 31st or
there's still a lot of protests right now.
Yes.
There's protests, I'm sure.
They took an effect in Brampton, you mean?
Brampton.
Yeah.
It's
January.
called the RLL rental something.
Leasing license or something?
Yeah. There's a license.
Oshawa does that now though, regardless
Oshawa
if it's a
has
student
already.
or not. They have a licensing program.
And one of the reason for the protest is that it puts the onus on the landlord without realizing that the landlord doesn't always have control over it, because like you said, they could be renting out to 4 friends or students. Next, they've got a dozen people in there.
It's like, who are you guys?
Where'd you come from?
Where did you come from? Yeah. Who's everybody here?
But the landlord is the one that gets penalized for it.
Right.
Yep.
And so they haven't hashed it out properly so that like law-abiding landlords can comply.
Yeah, it feels a little rushed.
Yeah.
Well, they are getting pinched because for existing tenants, they could have several tenants, and if they don't have the license, they're going to get fined.
Yeah.
So it's also retroactive.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a tenant,
but that's going to limit again with that. It's going to limit the housing supply, and with all these students coming in, with all these immigrants coming in, it's like they can't, like that's what's going to drive the prices up.
I mean, it comes back to
You're right.
the cap. I mean, it's good.
The cap is good though.
I think the cap is good because you
Definitely
avoid a lot of the demand, and also it avoids like a lot of the immigration like loopholes that people
do you think it's
using.
actually going to help though? To be honest, like I mean, they haven't capped it to zero.
No.
But the schools
I
are
mean,
gonna-
it's
schools
definitely
are gonna feel the
limited.
pinch, man.
300,000.
You're cutting back on.
But we're already on that short supply. Like every aspect of it, even the healthcare system, already at capacity, and they're still not stopping it. So they're still bringing in more.
So let me break
right?
down the cap itself. Within the cap, it's not across
It feels
the
like a
board.
Band-Aid, to be honest. To me.
No. Let me explain. So it's not across the board. They're talking about having 2-tier. So the 2-tier system is where some of the larger institutions have almost first right to refusal, or they're able to have a expedited way of approving international students, where some of, I guess, the smaller colleges, private colleges, they have a shorter supply. You know, for a lot of the smaller diploma mill, where they have a lot of students come through for the revenue driven, and they're taking a piece of the pie.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, I think I hear what you're saying is that what they should be doing is qualifying the students better, and they have to be able to identify the institution that they're going to be going to.
Yeah.
And if the institution is known as not really producing like good or not even really giving them education,
Like the like I was saying, the bullshit diplomas.
Yeah. So
right?
like if that's the
Programs.
case, then that should be a government thing where they should screen them better.
They
Is
can
that
regulate
what
that a
you're
little bit
saying,
better.
Steve?
Yeah,
Is that-
so that
Not just a cash grab,
That is what it is.
right?
So like the tier 1 university and colleges will get the first pick of the group, and the numbers of students that are allowed to go to these fly by night like private colleges, they're more selective.
Yeah,
The
because
numbers going
what
there.
they're producing too is I guess substandard student education experience, because half these institutions, they don't have
They're just in it for the
full-
cash grab, to be honest, right?
So they're not giving you the proper education to be able to convert them into
Right.
employable.
And to be useful citizens, and
Yeah,
contributing
contributing
members
citizens,
of society.
yeah.
and then what happens? They end up, after they pay, they leave.
They leave.
Go back.
Yeah.
They go back
Yeah.
to
They go back to
where-
where
Right.
home.
So let's go on to the next topic: the foreign buyers extension up until
foreign buyers ban.
2027. Yeah.
Mm.
So with that, like we explained earlier, that's the government deciding to stop foreign buyers from purchasing for an extended period of time up until 2027. Do you think that's going to affect the market overall for us? Yes or no?
No.
Not really.
No, not at all.
I think.
I think that it's already been documented that the percentage of foreign buyers
is very
is
small.
like very, very small percentage. I think it's less than 5% of the overall purchases. I think it's like even like 2%.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not it's not the
I'm not
driving
correct.
force
It's not-
for the
yeah.
price increase.
But it's not like foreigners can't buy. Like if they don't live here and they want to buy in Canada, right? Like for example, if you live in China or India or I don't know, Europe somewhere, right? And they live there and they just want to invest in Toronto or in Canada.
It's a
They
small
can't-
percentage.
Sorry, not even in Canada, in Ontario, because the ban is on Ontario.
Yes.
So like if that's the case, then it's like they can't do that. But if they have a work permit, they can still buy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just they have
But they have to physically be here though, right? If
Yeah,
get
they
a work
actually
permit,
physically
they
have to be here.
Physically here.
Yeah, and there's obviously within that rule, there's tax rebates that they can still do. So they have to pay the non-resident sales tax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's about 20% of the purchase price. Or that is 20%, not
Right.
about. It's 20% on the closing. So it's a huge bill at the end of the year.
So
Right,
it's
at
a
the end of closing.
disincentive for them to invest here, but they can always invest in like Calgary and wherever else.
I think there's only certain provinces that have the ban. I think.
yeah, it's not
Alberta doesn't
it's
have
not
the
Canada
ban.
wide, but
I
I
wonder if
think
it's in Vancouver, BC. Sorry.
I don't know, not sure, but I don't think it's that's the driving force.
Well,
Like,
foreign buyers ban is in BC. That's where they
Yes,
started.
it started
it.
in BC.
but are they still
started it.
continuing it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still
It's
there.
indefinite.
Yeah, because in
I don't know.
2017, that's when Kathleen Wynne like implemented it in Ontario because they saw it work in
She
BC.
mirrored it, yeah. But that's a good thing, though. I mean, so there's other areas, there's other provinces in Canada to explore and to build up, right? We need the economies in other provinces. I'm just saying, right? So in a
Well,
way,
plenty of
that
land.
it's good.
I mean, yeah.
In a
So
way,
quick,
that's good.
quick question. So for any students listening to this, are they able to buy before getting a work permit, or if they're in their studies?
Well,
like
if they're in
parents-
student visa, they can't buy.
They have to have, I think it's a PR, right? They need at least a PR.
Work
So-
permit or PR, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
I think-
so I believe after they finish their study, they are able to remain and
They got to get their status first.
they get their status, and then they're able to buy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the standard to get a work permit is much higher than an international student.
Fair enough.
So when it works, there's no standard, right? Clearly, this is why they capped it.
Floodgates are open.
Yeah, the ban on foreign buyers being extended, that doesn't change supply. Like we've got a supply issue. That's not changing anything. According to the CBC, prior to the non-residence tax, foreign buyers made up between 5 to 10% of purchases in the GTA.
Okay.
After the tax came in, it dropped below 5. In some cases, in some areas, under 3%. It's working. The tax is already working.
Okay. Yep.
And come on, during COVID, numbers went crazy. Obviously, foreign buyers weren't buying in Canada during COVID, but numbers still went crazy. So
Prices still went up like
Yeah,
nuts.
there's other reasons why it went up that crazy during COVID. I mean, interest rates were like at zero practically. So
a lot-
money was like free.
Yeah.
exactly. So foreign buyers, like
Well, I mean,
they have
it's-
minimal impact.
I feel like this ban is more to slow down the process and kind of like the people that come through the student route or the work permit route kind of just slows them down from just staying at home in whatever country they're in, injecting money and never stepping foot on our land and not contributing anywhere else. So at the very least, they can still tax the people that are here, right?
I think to some aspect it is a little bit of political. I think some of these announcements were
It's kind of for show, to be honest.
it's during election year, and they introduced
Exactly.
a new policy like, hey, look what we've done for the general public, and we're helping a lot of the local residents. And
Well, I think the cap was necessary though. I mean, to control the housing demand.
Yeah.
That's one of their.
It never should have inflated to that point anyways.
Yes.
But they made it easier for that to happen.
Well,
So it was-
they've kind of made it. They've kind of contained it because really we've gone back to basically 2019 standards, right? Because 360,000 students is about the same as 400,000 in 2019.
if you,
And
I
a slight
feel like there's a
difference.
correlation between like COVID and lack of money, them giving up
That's right.
CERB money and all that.
Yeah.
And then now they're like, oh, we're in debt. We need injection. They open up the floodgates. Let's bring in all these students.
Yeah, the demand went crazy after COVID or during COVID. So
Yeah.
right around 2019, 2020, that's when like things started going crazy. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
government was poor, so they need a source of revenue.
Yeah.
That's my correlation.
so let me
there.
ask you this: like, I recently saw a video, like a news broadcast. I think it was Global or CNBC, but it's regarding housing supply in terms of affordability. Like, I mean, any builder can keep building and not at a fast enough rate catch up to this demand in terms of immigration. But it's called war housing policy. Have you seen that? It's regarding expediting housing and building it on a very like fast pace during
Yeah.
war times.
Mhm.
And this
Yep.
happened
World War II, I think.
World War II, and they built 20,000 homes in record time. Do you think that would help our situation today, like in terms of
I think I saw an article, something like asking whether or not this type of method, like all the houses, they all look exactly identical. I think even in Scarborough, I think that was how they did it back in the day. You see like a whole row of houses. Every single house looks completely identical. There's no feature, like no different features,
Yeah,
whatnot.
same layouts, same everything.
Same
Yeah.
layout, same color, same everything.
yeah.
The whole street's the same. And I think that's like some of those houses are based off of that policy back in the day.
because
I, I think that's fine.
I feel like that would be a great option if they can execute it, because
And they
it's
build it cheaper too because it's all cookie cutter.
yes, it's just
materials are
housing.
still materials. It's labor is still twice as much. Like it's
Fair enough, but you know, a lot of these developments is really development charges that get built into the cost.
Well, the city
from the
charges
city,
the builders
yeah.
too.
From the city,
Yeah.
and
The
then
levies and all
costs,
that. Yeah.
the land cost. So if this kind of a subdivision is built out of crown land and subsidized heavily and then the red tape, like development charges, somewhat waived, I think that'll be a solution.
It would actually make sense, to be honest, if I know government. They're not experts in building, but if they get into this and start actually helping out the housing crisis, it'll in effect kind of like help with the prices, help with the demand. Like they got to get into the rental game. They got to get into the actual housing game.
It should help with a lot of jobs too. Like it creates a lot of momentum, economic drive.
They should be
to the
spending money on
area.
stuff like that instead of giving it away.
Well,
So-
they're spending a lot on war.
I think what happened over the years is that they've slowly diminished the social housing, right?
Yeah.
Canadian government, or at least Ontario
They
government.
put it all in the private sector, right?
Yeah. So really now that we're seeing an increase of homelessness, I mean, I don't know if you ever ride the TDC, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Right. You
a
have
lot.
a lot of homeless people that, you're riding in peak hours and you have homeless guys that are taking up 3 seats because they're laying there and they're,
Well, no one wants to be sitting in those seats.
well, you don't know after they get out, right? So,
It's not about the dirtiness. It's just
but you know what? Like there's also people that are just hanging out in the subways because it's
Literally,
warm.
yeah.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
It's warm
it's warm
for them.
Warmth,
yeah, so it's like kind of like their way of like staying warm and sheltered. They should. I know,
It
like
ripples-
maybe they should.
Yeah.
Based on what you're saying, is that the government should.
They're not
create
doing their
more-
job. They're not
Do you think?
doing their
Do you think
job.
the Canadian government should create more social housing again?
I think it's necessary because again, how can we have homelessness rampant? It's crazy in supposedly like a first world country, one of the top cities.
I
in
think devil's
the world,
advocate
right?
though, if we just drive certain population to that area, we might get another region
The
park.
region park. like
Well, it's better
segregation.
than kind of spread all around the whole entire city. Like you're concentrating them in one area.
You know what? It's better than like them actually like for them not to be able like to be homeless. We still have to help them. Government's still paying to help these people. Why not put them in a better
and
situation?
plus, reason why they had region park was because it was somewhat accessible to the city. If we build it out too far, if we build it up like in North Pickering, I don't think anyone would want to move there, even though if it's subsidized or if it's free. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. Like
There was a big drive to Brampton back in the days, and it was due to affordability, like no interest mortgages. So I could see it
can be
working in
done.
Pickering. Yeah.
It can be done, right?
But back to Steve's mention about the war times building, I absolutely think it'll help with the supply issue because definitely it takes too long to build right now. Way too much red tape. If they went ahead and approved a number of template houses, like let's say they approve a template of 20 different houses and you built those 20 different styles in a neighborhood, that gives you a number of diverse styles and quicker building.
It's like
Absolutely.
So template A, B, and C. What do you want?
Yeah, which one do you want?
It's like combo A, combo B.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
and then at what price? Like
Yeah, you know what? Like
the
then the question is
nonprofit?
like who's building them, and who's like if the Canadian government's funding it. If the acquisition of land is already expensive,
Well, I mean,
and then the material
he's
cost.
saying-
he was saying
Steve's
Crown
saying,
Land.
yeah, Crown
They
Land.
already
Just use
own it.
Greenbelt. Let's go
So
back
just
to the
build on top of
Greenbelt.
the Crown's land. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, who's going to
use
build
that.
it? Like, so the builder has to be like they have to be agreeing to a certain value,
Yeah.
right? It's almost going to be like a nonprofit to do. So it's going to be, yeah. I mean, they can definitely do it. It'd be a good idea, but
Yeah.
they have to come to agreement.
Well, if they come up with a decision to do it, I'm sure they can like come up with a program that's incentivizes that.
Yeah.
So, like right now, they're already subsidizing like builders building rental buildings, right?
Yeah.
Rental purpose. So there are incentive programs for that, but it's just the willingness of the government.
I think in reality, if the government was to have a posting to hire general contractors or builders and then give them these sets of criteria, someone will sign up to it and oversee the entire project, even though it's more of a non-profit initiative. Because a lot of the builders themselves, obviously, they're not doing it for free. It's for profit, right? These are the private sector. But if you have a division in the government that can oversee and execute this project. Mind you, like they might overspend just like LRT, but at the same time, it's a little different because they're not outsourcing it. The LRT, they outsource the whole project and obviously overruns. But if you have it in-house, like I know the government's not in the business of building and construction, but maybe they should consider it.
Yeah.
I think
That's just my
something
point.
comparable to what they're doing for condo builders within a kilometer of subway, where what is it? Is it 10% of units must be sold at below a market price for affordable housing? If they did that with
Well, I think it's 10%.
detached,
I think it's 10% of the units have to be used as rentals.
oh, is it 10%? Okay.
Yeah, they have to be used as rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're coming
Any
up on
final
time,
thoughts?
guys.
Any last
so-
thoughts? Any last words, guys?
I do. Let me finish this.
Yeah,
This
sure.
actually brings up another issue. Not a new issue, but in terms of affordability, who gets this if they were to build it out? Like there would be a lottery system.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to buy a property for
they'll
rental.
have to
You
go
have to
through-
qualify to
Yeah,
be
exactly.
eligible. Sure.
You have to be below a certain income level.
and
Absolutely.
you can't rent it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have to
Well,
live
it's social
there.
housing. So
Yeah. So, I mean, good. Any final thoughts, guys? What do you guys
I'm
think?
good.
You good? Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you guys enjoying content.
Yeah, help
We'll
us
see you
out.
guys next time.
See you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.